For the cheapest coins with fast delivery and quick customer support, check out my sponsor Red Zone Coins and use code SWIFT at checkout for 15% off. Salsa family, and today I'm coming back at you guys with another Madden 21 video on the channel, and in today's video I'm going to be going over 4 important team building tips to help you guys build out the ultimate team of your dreams while still sticking on schedule and getting good value for your players. Now, by following this advice, you can go from this while you play the game to playing online and having this reaction. So yeah, hopefully you guys do enjoy today's video. Before we hop into it, I just want to give a quick thank you to all you guys for supporting me recently. We just hit 65,000 subscribers, which is absolutely awesome. Thank you guys so very much for the support on the channel. Almost a year ago today, I was at 6.5k subs, just hoping that a video would pop off and that I'd get my lucky break. So if any of you guys are new on YouTube or really into some type of hobby, just work hard at it and you never know, your dreams can become a reality. Thank you guys so very much for the support, especially those of you that are super dedicated to the channel, always liking the videos, commenting in my DMs as well. So yeah, thank you guys for the support. It's been awesome to build the community that I've built so far, and yeah, hopefully we can continue the success and get to 100,000 subscribers in Madden 21. That would be absolutely awesome and a dream come true. Now, tip number 1 of the video here is to make big upgrades without spending big coins. Now, what I mean by that is when I make an upgrade on my team, and what you guys should follow as well, is to make upgrades at positions where you need an upgrade without spending a ton of coins to get the best player in the game. So an example of that is at my left end position. At my left end position, I had Jack Youngblood. He was certainly solid, but I definitely needed an upgrade at left end. And instead of buying the best left end in the game, I went with Aaron Donald, who's not going to be the most expensive player. I was able to get crafty and use my power up pass on him, so I was able to get him for really cheap. And that's kind of what I'd recommend you guys do when you make your upgrades. When you see a position that needs to be upgraded, make that upgrade and try and get someone that's like a few overall points better than what you currently had, not just 1 overall point better, because usually that's not going to be worth it in the grand scheme of things. So you're going to want to get an upgrade that makes a pretty tangible difference and gives you some really good value at that position without spending a ton of coins and getting the number 1 player at the position. I would recommend that you guys aim to target players in like the 2 to 5 range when you make your upgrades, so you can get like the 2nd or 3rd or 4th best card, which is going to be a lot cheaper than getting the best player and usually isn't going to suffer that much in terms of quality of play. So that's tip number 1. Make an upgrade at a position where you need to upgrade, but don't get the best player out there, and also don't skimp out and just get someone that's a tiny bit better. Instead of getting like an 87 overall defensive end, I went all the way up to 91 Aaron Donald in place of my Jack Youngblood. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about with tip number 1. Big upgrades without spending big coins, and that basically means you're getting value in your purchases and you're upgrading at spots that need to be upgraded and have low overalls on your team. Now, tip number 2 is also a very important one. I feel like tip number 1 and tip number 2 are probably the most important pieces of advice I'm going to give you guys in this video, and this tip is to maximize the stats on the back of the cards that you purchase. So a great example of that is DK Metcalf. I was actually able to get DK Metcalf for free from doing the solo challenges, but I'm maximizing the stats on this card based on the scheme that I run. DK Metcalf is a great vertical receiver, and I run a vertical style offense. He's got 92 speed, 88 deep route running to go along with some really good catching stats, but obviously DK Metcalf is going to be most known for being able to stretch the field, and I like to stretch the field in my offense, so this card works perfectly on my team. Another great example is tight end. At tight end, you can get someone that's more of a run blocker, or you can get someone that's got better route running, and as you can see, I went with the route running option with Jermichael Finley, and I paid the premium to get his 91 medium route running, but I do use that medium route running a ton in game. I'm maximizing the stats that I've got on the card. This type of rule can apply basically anywhere on the board on your offensive line. Get better run blockers than pass blockers based on what you like to run. In your secondary, man coverage or zone coverage. On your defensive line, pass rush or run stuff. On your linebackers, pass rush or pass coverage or run stuff. So you really just want to maximize the stats on the back of your card by selecting and adding players that are going to add a ton of value to your team and fit within your scheme. It's not very helpful if you get a linebacker that has really low pass rushing stats and then you get him to rush the quarterback, because you're not going to be maximizing the stats on that card. So when you you do find your position to upgrade, and when you do figure out how much you want to spend on your upgrade by using tip number 1, then use tip number 2 and make sure that when you select your card, they fit into your scheme and you can maximize the stats of the player based on how you play in game. Now, moving on to tip number 3, we're going to talk about free players here, and it is very important that you guys use free players to construct your team. Now, when I use free players and when I add them to my squad, I usually like to add them in positions that are less important. So I'll do it at like defensive tackle, depth in my secondary, maybe for depth in my linebacker core. But as you can see right here, Leroy Glover, Geno Atkins, Jalen Ramsey, AJ Terrell, Xavier McKinney, Sam Mills, Patrick Queen, and Jalen Smith were all free players. That is over half of my defense that I got absolutely free for just doing stuff in game, solo challenges, objectives, different rewards. Those are all free cards that you guys can earn and play with on your team. But one common trend you guys will probably notice is a lot of these players are at less important positions: defensive tackle, depth in the secondary, depth at linebacker, at my positions that I know are super important, like my starting secondary members, both of my safeties, both of my corners, my 2 edge rushers. I spent coins on those players to make sure that I get the people that fit my scheme the most, and that's because those positions are simply more important than defensive tackle, cornerback 3, and middle linebacker depth. And the same goes on offense. DK Metcalf, CD Lamb, a lot of my offensive line are all free cards, but I ended up spending on people like wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, and running back, because those positions are a lot more important. So I wanted to make sure that I got a player at those positions that would maximize their value in my scheme. So that's what I wanted to talk about when it comes to free players. Make sure you guys add as many as possible to your team. It's going to help you out a ton, because by getting a free defensive tackle, you save the coins that you would have spent on one of those DTs, and you can use those coins somewhere else to get a better player or to continue to upgrade your team. But when you do get a free card, the majority of the time I'm selecting a player on my depth position. So if I had the option to choose either a wide receiver, a defensive tackle, or a corner or a safety with my free player, I would choose positions that don't matter as much, like defensive tackle, offensive line. You guys probably get the gist of what I'm saying, but that was tip number 3 of the video. Now, moving on to tip number 4, I want to talk about staying with the meta and making sure that your team aligns with what works in game. Now, this can be 2 different things. This can either be a scheme or a player that is super meta. If you guys remember last year, if you did end up playing Madden last year, Eric Dickerson was the meta card. He was the best running back in the game. He broke a ton of tackles. So you guys are just going to want to make sure that you keep up to date with what's popular in the game. If there's a specific player that is just absolutely dominant, then you might have to keep up with the trend and buy that player and add him to your team. If there's a certain scheme that works super well, like running the ball or passing the ball, then you're going to want to adjust your team accordingly to what's popular in game right now. Now, that isn't really one tip I can just give you and tell you go do this right now, because it depends on what happens with the game. By watching Madden and watching other people play, you'll get a sense of what's popular, and then you can build your team based on that if you end up starting to scheme around what's popular in the game. That was more of an advanced tip at the end here, though. My main 3 pieces of advice are: firstly, big upgrades without spending big coins. That means getting good value in your upgrades and upgrading at positions that need to be upgraded. Then tip number 2 regarding maximizing the stats on your players. So finding a card that you know is going to work well in your scheme and that is going to be able to play super well because they're really good at the one thing that you like to have that card do. Then moving on to tip number 3, we talked about using free cards. I recommend you get free cards, but use them in places that are less important. As you can see, I've got a free Joe Tooney, a free Trent Williams, a free DK Metcalf, a lot of free players on this team, but a lot of them are going to be more depth positions or players that are going to impact the game a little bit less in case their stats don't perfectly align with what I like to do on my team. So that's going to do it for me. Hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. If you did, leave a like. Thank you guys all for the support as well on my past couple of uploads and just throughout all of Madden 21. It's been a great ride so far. I hope you guys have been enjoying as well. And until next time, fellas, I'm out. Have a great rest of your day. Peace. So,